The next speaker is someone I had the privilege of being on a couple of calls with as sort of that prep and prelim. And both times that I hung up, I sort of wanted to go for a walk and get a breath of fresh air. So what I'm going to plant for you is, have you ever heard of a whiskey sommelier? He's coming up. And get this title, I love this, Vice Chancellor of the Wizard Academy. Is that great or what? Please welcome Daniel Whittington.
All right. Well, there's a lot of people out here. I only saw you guys from the side, so I'm just going to talk to you. So, to start with, a girl gets on the bus in Glasgow, and the bus driver turns to her and says, "Oi, that there's the ugliest baby I've ever seen. You should be ashamed of yourself bringing a baby like that out in public. Well, that is disgusting." And she goes to the back of the bus, she's crying. The gentleman leans over her shoulder and says, "Oi, why are you crying?" She says, "Well, that bus driver up there just said the most horrible thing to me that anyone's ever said before. So you can't let him get away with that. You got to get up there and give him a piece of your mind. I'll hold your monkey." Now, it's one of my favorite Scottish jokes, but I tell that one for two reasons. First, just to say, one, I'm that guy. Which, what I mean by that is sometimes, even when I'm trying to be helpful, I'm still an asshole. So, and if, I may not be able to rein the language in, so I'm going to need an official apologizer who can just every once in a while raise their hand and go, "He's sorry," and then we're all good, right? Right? Okay, good. Okay, then we'll move on from there. Now, everything I'm going to teach you, normally we cite these things. I run a business school for entrepreneurs in South Austin called the Wizard Academy. And one of our rules is when we talk about anything, we always say where we heard it, where we got it, and it's cited. I don't have time to do that today. So I'm just going to tell you, I heard some really cool things, and I'm going to share them with you. Fair enough? I didn't necessarily invent them unless you really liked it. And then I totally invented that. So first things I learned from Ray Segern. The others I learned from a really famous screenwriter that we took and applied to business about character diamonds, which is what we're going to talk about today. That is, my mind just went blank on his name. He's going to kill me for that. Never show him this. He's just a really nice guy. And then Roy Williams has developed this into what we use for business and business marketing. So first let's talk about companies. So we've got culture, story, and experience, right? These are the fundamental trio of any company from internal to external, right? So we start with your culture. That's who you are as a company, deep down, not just your public facing, but who you are, who you think you are. So that's actually the experience that your employees have within your company, right? That's actually what defines who you are when it comes to culture. Now, story is what you say about who you are. That's different. Those are two different things. It's the personality that goes into your messages and your marketing campaigns. It's the personality that shows up by accident when your people are represented somewhere, right? That's story. And last, you got experience, and experience is the things you actually do as opposed to what you talk about and who you say you are, right? Now, these are the things you need to be aware of. This is what customers have when they interact with your people. How many people have had problems like this? Authenticity is what happens when story, who you say you are, and experience, the experience people have with you, when those are the same, you're an authentic company. When those don't align, that's when bad reviews start showing up. You know, the easiest way to combat bad reviews is don't be a shitty company. I'm just saying, right? You can't avoid all bad reviews because some bad reviews are just some people are assholes like me. But high morale is what happens when the story you tell everybody about yourself and the culture inside your company, when those match, you have high morale. You have people excited to be there, part of the mission, excited to be working with you, right? That's a great thing. But when it doesn't, you've got cancer in the building. When everybody knows that what you say about who you are and what you're going to do is not what it's like to work for you, that's a major problem. Now, Brand ambassadors. These are the people who will go about looking for reasons to talk about you. They're born when all three of those are in alignment. That's what happens when your customers become a part of your family instead of just someone taking part in your services, right? So the reason we came up with character diamonds is because we're a marketing school and we were running into a problem trying to get everybody in the company on board. You have that traditional battle between sales and marketing and internal and the website guys and so on, right? So how do we get everybody in a very quick, because none of the sales team wants to sit through a marketing exercise. So how do you get a really short, easily understood idea of who we are that allows everybody to act consistently inside that? Well, we discovered, and this is true, by the way, with any problem. If you ever find a problem, you're not the first person who's encountered the shape of that problem. And the solution to that problem probably isn't in your industry. It's in another industry that had the same shape of the problem you had and they figured it out, right? There's nothing in the world worth less than a ticket on an airplane that flew away 10 minutes ago, right? No one's ever had that problem before, ever. How do we solve that? Well, what about a room that wasn't rented last night? Or what about a concert ticket that wasn't sold for a concert held yesterday, right? Who else has solved these problems? And just so you know, good resources could be found at conventions of your own people, but solutions are almost always found at other people's conventions. You can go to some other industry's convention and people will give away all the secrets of their success because you're not a competitor and they don't even view it as really relevant to you. If you can just find somebody who's faced the shape of the problem. That was actually Henry Ford, total side story I'm not going to go into, obviously. He went, tried to create a cheap car, had a buddy at a meat packing plant, figured out how to take a pig from oink to saran wrap in 5 minutes, right? May have heard about that. And Henry Ford says, hey, what if we just do this backwards? And that guy told him everything he needed to know about the kind of people you hire, how you set up the plant, just gave away the farm because Ford was making cars. He's not a competitor with the pig guy, right? So what we discovered was our shape of our problem existed in fiction and in Hollywood and in book authors and things like this, right? Which is that when you're writing a book and when you're writing a movie, you need to have, and especially in a TV show these days where you've got, a dozen writers on a show, everyone needs to be able to write dialogue in consistency with the voice of each character, right? And so very early on, everyone defines who is our character. And this came about, Freeman, that's what it is, David Freeman. You tell him I remembered him. And you tell him I remembered him the first time. Character diamonds are what they used to create these, and the trick was a magical character diamond always had a few very specific things. And we're going to go through them in detail really quick right now. I'm giving you what we normally teach in 2 days in 30 minutes. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. It's going to go really fast. All right. So a clearly worded character diamond will bring all these facets into your character. So let's find a character diamond we can all understand. So who is this? And who has not seen this show? Wow, that's actually a lot less people than I thought. That'd be more. Who has seen this show? The rest of you are lying or misunderstood the question. Okay, so what are we're going to pick 3 things because a character diamond is actually shaped like a diamond. And it's got anywhere from 3 to 4 things that keep it simple. You don't want to go more than that. 3 to 4 is the magical number. Too boring in the long run. So 3 things that define House MD. What's probably the first thing? Does anyone have the guts to shout it out in this big? Arrogant. Okay. That's definitely on there, but what's even more important than that, or he wouldn't have a job? They didn't hire him to be an asshole. Okay, so he's a diagnostic genius maybe, right? Oh, wow, I just thought of that. I'm pretty sure I heard it from somewhere. Okay, but number 2, you guys, no one ever gets this part wrong because it's what makes the show entertaining. He's, shall we say, socially insensitive, otherwise known as asshole, right? Now, but what, and this is the most important thing if you get nothing else, to get this. What's the one thing that doesn't fit that makes him a fascinating character? This is an interesting character, but it only takes you so far. He's human, but what makes him human? Yes, my God, that's never happened before. He's a drug addict. Well done. You're in charge of all marketing communication for wherever you are from now on. Okay, so he's a drug addict. The thing that just doesn't fit being a high-paid diagnostic genius and doesn't necessarily, now any two of those things are fine. They make sense, right? A diagnostic genius who's a drug addict, we've met those, right? Or read about them, right? Or an asshole who's a drug addict, yeah, we've met those, right? Or maybe just the first two. But it only gets to become interesting when you add a third thing. That's called the third gravitating body in science. It's what takes something from predictable path to unpredictable path. If you have two gravitating bodies, you can almost infinitely predict the future. You add a third gravitating body, you can only predict up to a certain point, and then it's a mystery after that. It's what the astronauts and NASA had to deal with when they launched, because we have a third gravitating body with the moon. So they could do calculations, but at a certain point, calculations are all off because it's unpredictable and you have to be able to adjust on the fly, right? Now that's really important. Now why is this such a magical character? Because this is important. Once you've found a really magical character, you'll discover you're not the first person who thought of this. Shocking, I know. Genius that you are. Other people in the world also thought that this was a really cool idea, right? So why do we like House MD so much? It's because we've always loved Sherlock Holmes, right? Sherlock Holmes has been a hero forever, and we like him no matter how he's portrayed. He's still the same magnetic person, right? Now, who did not realize House MD was based on Sherlock Holmes? Yeah, you're not going to raise your hand, even if you did. Yeah, really, House, Holmes, this buddy was Watson. Oh, wait, no, Wilson. It's all, they admit it. It's pretty blatant. Okay, so the personality of a brand, and feel free to take photos of this crap. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Determined by 3 or 4, now this is important, core attributes. Yeah, I like when I say this is important, that means you can forget everything else. Just kidding. It has to be a core attribute, it can't be a quirk. The fact that House walked with a cane, or that he had a limp, that's a quirk or eccentricity. We're not talking about those kinds of things. Those cannot define your company. You can't let just the peripheral symptoms be the main thing. You always have to look to see, is this a symptom or is this the core, right? Now, the voice of any brand is an extension of its personality, and a character diamond provides guidance to the people writing for your company, just like on movies, just like on TV. If your marketing team understands who you are, it's a lot easier to write ads. Anytime you're presented with should we or shouldn't we, the answer is right in front of you, right? Now, if you get it done right, it also lets the salespeople know who they are. Because a good salesperson knows that their own personality is left at the door when they walk in to be a part of the company, in as much as it hurts rather than helps them, right? You ever run into a salesperson who's like, but this is who I am? That guy's not lasting long, right? But you need to give them a direction, and this kind of thing will do it. So let's walk through a couple of templates really fast. Like I said, I'm moving pretty quickly here. What are the defining characteristics? And we say diamond because I want you to think of it more like a compass or a baseball diamond, not like a diamond on your finger, right? Everybody got that already? Okay. It's funny, I only saw you guys when I got on, but I'm only ever talking to this side. All right, so what are the defining characteristics that make this character think, speak, act, and see the world the way that they do? Now, here's where we do it. This is a template you can use free of charge, or just send me whiskey, one or the other. The first thing you have to establish is, what's your North Star? Who are you? And this is external focus. So the vertical axis is external focus. So who are you? As a public entity, what do you stand for? What would anyone in the room who heard about you go, well, this is who they are, right? That's your North Star. That's the obvious, most core thing about you. The second thing is going to be, it has to be something that once you know the first thing, this surprises you. And it's called the counter star. I think I just lost a button. It's called the counter star, right? So it needs to be something that's not necessarily opposite of the first thing. That's the wrong direction. It just needs to be, if you know the first thing, the second thing is a little bit surprising, right? It's like a diagnostic doctor genius who's trying to save people, who's an asshole, right? Not illogical, but just a little bit like, wow, it's surprising, unless you're friends with a surgeon, and then you know it's not that surprising. Okay, so the next thing, and this is by far, if you only get 3, this is what you do. You have to include the vulnerability. You have to include the vulnerability. Because without flaws, you're not human. And people are drawn to you because of your flaws, not in spite of your flaws. Right? The most political I'll get all day today is when I say one of the reasons we all felt sort of vaguely like this is not the best election ever, to put it mildly. One of the things I think was no one at any level was ever willing to admit a flaw. Period. Right? And it makes them, no matter whether you believe in what they believe or not, it makes them feel less human and harder to get behind and identify with. Right? The moment a company makes a misstep and tries to cover up a flaw as a strength, that's when you lose all authenticity from a consumer standpoint, right? It's like going to an interview. What's your weakness? I work too hard, right? And everyone's like, come on, dude. Your weakness is that you're a gossiping asshole, right? We all know this, right? Let's put you on the phones. People will love to talk to you, right? So now, the other thing, and this is important because you've got the horizontal line. And if you can really develop something, this is where you develop it. The core identity. This is not anything people know about you. This is what you know about what drives you and your company, why you exist. And by the way, never share this with the public. If you ever create this for your company, please don't ever share this with the public because it needs so much context to explain its value. It can be easily misconstrued. Right? So this is internal only, period. It just helps give you a template. So let's show somebody we did this with. So we have someone from our school, and she came and spent a day, and we worked on hers. She's been on every major show that if instead of working during the day, you watch a lot of daytime TV, you've probably seen her. Or maybe you're working and watching a lot of daytime TV, and you've probably seen her. So we figured out, okay, let's build her character diamond. So what's the thing everyone knows her for? The thing is, she's a science nerd. I mean, just as geeky as a science geek gets, right? So what's the thing about her that's actually kind of surprising once you've identified, hey, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, this woman who's a true science nerd? Well, for us, super sexy. Right? Which, when you're on TV, that becomes an important character diamond, right? Because your persona is part of your whole scene, right? Super science nerd, drop dead gorgeous. Not the person who walks into the room and you think, she probably knows more about science than anyone I've ever met, right? But absolutely true. Now, that's not actually what she felt drove her. We needed a weakness, and she came up with a few, and they sucked. And by the way, if you really want to find a vulnerability in your company, you don't ask your leadership team. I'm just gonna say, ask the people who are not afraid to tell you exactly how you're fucked up, right? And that's where you get your actual vulnerability, right? So if you're like me, you ask your wife. All right. So what we discovered was she's actually freakishly insecure, and she dates it back to the fact that she's adopted. And she's never come to terms with it. And so it sort of drives her. It's a function that drives her, right? And it's probably the ambition that drives a lot of her TV career, the need to be seen, right? But in spite of her flaw, and maybe even because of that flaw, and by the way, your greatest flaw is also your greatest strength, and if you don't have a greatest flaw, you don't have a greatest strength. If you only take that home, take that home. Right? If you have no great flaw, you also have no great strength. Sorry about that. What drives her inside, she's a mom. In her mind, that's the most important thing that drives everything she does. She will cancel TV appearances at the last second, attends every game, does everything, and her boys need her. Everything in the world stops when her kids need her, right? Hasn't kept her back from any kind of successful career, but it still is the crossroads she's willing to die on, right? Now, that's J.J. Virgin. Who's ever seen J.J. Virgin on TV? Yeah, well, good. You guys are all working instead of watching TV. Well done, you. Okay, so the vertical axis is what we notice about her, but the horizontal axis is what makes her relatable instead of a caricature. Right? Without that horizontal axis, you just become a caricature. You need a true flaw. And you need to actually believe in something. Now, this one's a little personal for me. I have a son with a rare syndrome, 18 surgeries so far, probably another 15 before he turns 18 years old. He's 9 now. He's a fucking rock star. I spent a lot of time at Ronald McDonald House, and they came to, we worked with their team for the one in North Carolina, and we worked together, and this was the character diamond they brought when they showed up. They'd already attended a couple classes. Oh, we got this figured out. And this is what they created. They're number one, okay, that's cool, serious medical. It's okay, but you're not the doctors. You're the place where people stay, right? So maybe serious medical, maybe not your main thing, but I get why you would think that. The opposite, perky fun, okay, yes. If you've been to Ronald McDonald House, you know that's true, right? Always trying to have a good time to make everybody forget that this is the worst time in their whole life, right? Now, caring is what drives them. Absolutely, I buy that all day. You don't do that kind of shit if you don't care, right? It's too much work. Definitely don't do it for money, right? Now, their weakness, and this is like I said earlier, what's your weakness? I work too hard. What's your weakness, guys? Oh, we're smart and efficient. Like, did no one read this out loud, right? Did no one on your team thought, like, is that really a flaw? Yeah, true vulnerability. I'm going to be vulnerable just for a second. We're too efficient. That's our vulnerability. It's like, no. So, that's what we told them. Hey, guys, you're boring and predictable because we're nice people. And so we said, like, we need to swap those out with the things that actually drive you. So what's the truth about Ronald McDonald House? What defines them, actually? Guess what? They're brokenhearted. That's what drives them. They know this is the worst time in your life. That's why they're there, and they make it every waking moment to support you, keep you a family, help you live your life in spite of the insanity, right? So what's their true flaw? They're broke. That's it, right? This is not a permanently funded organization that never has to worry about money. They always need money. They're always on a mission lacking money. So that's their true flaw. Now, how many people think that's human? Right? Who has ever been involved in Ronald McDonald House in any capacity? How many people see that and go, hell yes, that's Ronald McDonald House, right? I buy it, and I've lived there. All right, now who gets this? We'll blaze through these super fast. Who gets this down to their core? And I'm just going to give you only the public-facing parts of these characters, not their vulnerabilities and flaws. They all have them. There's one company that just, and again, we always teach this at school, but artists do things unconsciously. It's called unconscious competence, right? It's different than the worst possible thing you could be, which is unconscious incompetence, right? Everyone knows that whole grid, right? Like you don't know what you're not, yeah. So unconscious competence is a definition of an artist. You paint a masterpiece. They say, why'd you put red right there? Well, because it needed it. Like, well, that's not very helpful for the rest of us trying to paint things. Like, to just look at something and try to guess where we think the red's needed. Like, we need more information than that, right? We actually developed this whole system to try to explain what artists do intuitively. A good author just does this. They don't sit down and try to craft, and some of them may, right? But more often, artists just do things, right? So this is who figured this out and nailed it. just fucking nailed it, right? How about contrasts in Pixar? How about a rat that's a gourmet chef, right? How about a machine that's romantic and sentimental? How about a teddy bear that's sinister? Have you ever seen that? That is a fucking scary teddy bear, right? How about monsters afraid of children? How about sadness being the key to getting better? Now that's magnetic character diamonds, right? The reason no one cares about you that much is because you're boring. Not really, you just haven't figured out how to talk about yourself, right? You haven't yet figured out that flaws are the actual strength. Okay, so let's reverse engineer one. Whoever read The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak? Okay, that's good. Who saw the movie? Okay, I'm sorry, the movie sucked. And I knew it was going to suck. I mean, it was a good movie as far as movies go, but it sucked if you'd read the book, which everyone says. But it's because of one specific reason. The most important character in the whole book, the most powerful character in the whole book, was a character you couldn't possibly have portrayed in the movie. And when I realized they were making a movie and I realized there's no way they're going to put that character in there, and they didn't, that's what bottomed the movie out as far as soul, right? In the book, death is the narrator. That's what makes that so magnetic, right? And there's a lot of wild things about death. Here's his character diamond in the book. Evil, inhuman, very literally, and he's innocent and naive. Doesn't understand how the world works, why people think and do the things that they do, right? He's profoundly fascinated by colors. The job often tires him. His final line is, "I'm haunted by humans." Right? Now, these are powerful, but they're quirks and eccentricities. They result from him being innocent and naive and not human. You see the difference between those two? I'm not getting any nods. It's already done. Yes, okay, good. Okay, so what drives him? He is outside of time. He's a being doing his thing completely outside of time. He skips around the story. As a matter of fact, it's really fun. The story, you'll be open at next chapter, and Death will start talking randomly and explaining something to you, and halfway through he'll go, yeah, you haven't gotten there yet. But you will. So let's go back to where you actually were first. He's constantly giving away upcoming things in the story, forgetting that you don't function like he does outside of time. But what's his actual flaw? He's confused by people. It's a mystery. He's not this all-knowing being. He may be outside of time, but people are still a mystery to him. Now, that's a powerful character diamond, right? We may have seen that before, but here's how he did it as an artist. Marcus Zuzak said, "I think I just applied the thought of how scared I am of death and then reversed it." Sort of like Monsters, Inc., right? Also, I had more empathy for death when he was vulnerable. You should read that book. It's heavy, but it's an amazing book. So let's take that to a song, and that just happened to nail the identical character diamond. Only this time, instead of talking about death, we're talking about big data. Maybe otherwise known as Google, among other things, right? So let's see if big data had a song. What would that be? Who's a little creeped out right now, right? Does that not freak the shit out of you like it does me? Right? You notice at the end, after all of that terrifying shit you heard, it says, is this wrong? Isn't this what you want? Amen. Now, when you get something this powerful, where have you seen this before? How about here? 1998.
Am I dreaming this? Are you dreaming? I'm not afraid. You're coming to take me. What is that? Who the hell are you? You are. Yes. Who am I? Dead. You're dead. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I bet you're just a kid in a suit dissecting with body weight. Let me ask you a opinion. Do I blend in?
Let me ask you opinion. Do I blend in? Innocent and naive, right? If you haven't seen this, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, Meet Joe Black. It was modeled after Death Takes a Holiday, which was made decades earlier. But again, when you find a magnetic character, guess what? You aren't the first person to think of it. So let's go back another 7 years. We see the identical character diamond. That's right. Terminator. Same damn character diamond. Right? How about let's go back 30 years earlier? Who recognizes that? Yeah, baby. Once again, same character diamond, line for line. I can't do that, Dave. All right, that's enough TV watching. Okay, so we put together one just sort of quickly without actually sitting down and talking to you guys for CMLS after Mark Davison from 1000 Watt Consulting is an old friend of mine and a true genius. And so I read through what they had written up, which was brilliant, and we developed the character diamond from that. I will tell you, and this is, you have to hear this, if you're local or you operate directly with the end consumer, your character diamond can be magical. If you are one layer behind that, essentially B2B for all practical purposes, it's really hard to have a magical character diamond. It works. You can definitely find your character diamond, but you won't find it replicated in movies because it's nothing that anyone gives a shit about. It's internal, right? The further away you are from the end consumer, the weaker your character diamond's going to be, and so you got to be careful about that. But the closer you are, if you operated in Austin and you actually gave a shit about a specific time in Austin's history, and you only worked with those neighborhoods and tried to keep them true to Austin's history, there's a magical character diamond in there, right? And I'll tell you, your hero should be Leslie, is who it should be if it was up to me. That would be your character diamond, right? Right there, just right around in the thong all day long. And if you don't know Leslie, ask someone who knew Leslie. So this is going to feel a little further removed, but it gives you a sort of example that's a little closer to home, and then that'll finish us off. By the way, if anybody wants this, I'll email you this whole deck, just as a PDF. You have to go find the movies on your own. But be careful, you're holding dynamite. Used incorrectly, this could just screw you, because you'll get everybody towing the same shitty line, right? The worst thing that can happen if you misapply this tool is that you get everybody on board. That's the worst thing that could happen. Okay, so the thing that divines in my mind is the attempt to unify a fractured industry, right? From the outside, that's the whole point of a council of multiple listing services. That's it. It's simple, right? Well, what's surprising about an industry trying to unify an entire people? Oh, it's crowdsourced. For all practical purposes, it's crowdsourced, right? Ironically, guess who also has this character diamond contrast? America. I'm just saying, Uncle Sam might be your character diamond. All for one, but only if you vote me in, right? That's a massive contrast. The idea that you have a goal of unifying everyone, but you have no power on your own. None, right? You only have power if everyone gets behind it. That's a pretty dramatic contrast. Okay, so what am I going to guess is the core internal driver? Why would you do this other than it's a living? Hey, it's a living, right? I'm going to take the high road and just hope that it exists because you're hoping that this leads an entire nationwide industry into a sustainable market that can withstand changes in technology, changes in economy, changes in buyer base, and things like that, right? Let's be nice about it. Say that's the goal. Well, what's the real flaw? It should be blatant to anybody who works in it, because it was the first thing we thought of when we started this. You're extremely vulnerable to outside revolution, right? When you are at the mercy of the populace to sustain a power, and the information they hold is basically free at the end of the day, then you've got to figure out what makes you sustainable in a way that you can't be taken over from the outside when somebody knows how to get that information without needing you. The moment they figure that out, you're fucked. Right? Now, I did read enough, and we studied and talked to Mark a lot about this, and this is a simplification. There are a lot of things that CMLS does that aren't just single aggregating of data. Right? If all they did was aggregate data, you're truly fucked. But there are other things that you do, right? The problem is nobody knows about those. And so even the people trying to come in and take over are like, well, all they do is have one single source. It's like, well, someone's not talking about that correctly then, right? There's a lot more to it. That's like, the magic of a true realtor is not that without them you can't buy a home. It's without them you won't get fucked. That's it. That's the shortest version, right? So when someone calls you, the whole message doesn't have to be, well, you need us to buy a home. It's like, well, not really, but you need us to buy a home and still be solvent. Maybe, right? So that's a different discussion, though. So what I would say is you can take anything like this, and if you use it correctly, truly revolutionize the message and the market of your entire team, right? And character diamonds, by the way, they're not just things. And a lot of the companies we have character diamonds for the company, but we also have subset character diamonds for people on the phones and people in visiting locations, right? This is it's a thing, but you get too many, it's too many things to keep juggling, so simpler, better. But be very careful about this, because like I said, if you apply it correctly, amazing things. If you apply it incorrectly, I'm so sorry I taught this to you. Just, don't call me. But good luck to you, and I hope for the best. Thanks for having me out here, guys.